Every person must decide whether to walk in the light of creative altruism or the darkness of selfishness. This is the judgment. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Dr. Martin Luther King. Altruism refers to an activity that benefits another at some cost to oneself. While reasonable minds may differ on what forms altruism should take, few would argue that a little more altruism would be a good thing. Today's hip-hop movement can be a catalyst for tomorrow's altruism. The true measure of hip-hop's impact will depend on its answer to Dr. King's question. Examples of altruism are everywhere. Some are really big. The U.S. Army captain in Iraq who dashed into harm's way to save a fellow soldier. The teachers at Sandy Hook Elementary School, right here in Connecticut, who put themselves between a shooter and their students. The school administrator in Atlanta, Georgia, who prevented a tragedy by engaging a gunman in conversation. That school administrator could have run or hid underneath her desk. Instead, she told the man repeatedly that he was loved. She talked to him long enough for the police to arrive. Other examples of altruism are smaller, but no less important. The donation that helps keep the nonprofit afloat. The weekends spent tutoring inmates or building homes for low-income people. The voluntary furloughs and pay cuts that help junior employees keep their jobs. Altruism's origin stories are equally diverse. Some religions say that we sprang from an act of great altruism, creation, in the Garden of Eden, but we were cast away. Ancient philosophers say that altruism is part of our human nature. It's a natural law etched in our human consciousness. More recently, evolutionary biology, handed down to us from this man, Charles Darwin, suggests that altruism isn't lost in paradise or etched in human consciousness. It's embedded in our genes and in the genes of every other animal. Rather than run for it, wild Siberian horses form a circle to ward off wolves. African wild dogs regurgitate food for those guarding their pups and those too old to hunt. Archaeologists have discovered the remains of a human ancestor, a young Homo erectus boy, who appears to have lived for some time with an incapacitating tooth infection. They discovered the remains of another Homo erectus who lived to a ripe old age without any teeth at all. Bottom line, somebody was feeding these guys. But why do these behaviors persist? Why weren't they selected out a long time ago? Why hasn't nature given us horses and army captains and school administrators that only run away? And the answer is that altruism provides a survival advantage for others. And that's why it's still with us. We wouldn't be here without it. According to evolutionary biology, life's most persistent and urgent question may be, what would the horses do? Now, the fact that we can be altruistic doesn't mean that we will be. Genes aren't everything. Environment, and culture in particular, can support the altruistic impulse, or they can override it. Philosopher C.D. Broad once wrote that while people generally believe it's morally admirable to sacrifice one's well-being for another, many of us don't do it. There's no great risk, he wrote, of altruism, especially excessive altruism, becoming unduly frequent. But can we change this? Is there a cultural movement that can make altruism unduly frequent, even excessive? I think there is. It's hip-hop, y'all. Evolutionary biology owes its existence to Charles No Diggity Darwin and a trip he took to the Galapagos Islands off the coast of Ecuador. Hip-hop owes its existence to this man, DJ Kool Herc, and a trip he took from his birthplace in Kingston, Jamaica, rewind selector, to the South Bronx, New York. In the early 1970s, DJ Kool Herc began hosting parties for other young people in the neighborhood. Now, at these parties, he put records on, but he played only the instrumental portion with little or no singing, the break in the song. He'd do this over and over, looping the breaks together. And as he did so, he or somebody else would rhythmically chant a few phrases over those breaks. Now, the art of spinning records became known as DJing. The art of rhyming over beats became rapping. Those who danced the break beats were break dancers. And those who used spray paint to create visual art on train cars and buildings were graffiti artists. The subculture that formed around these four distinct art forms became known as hip-hop. And importantly, it was a subculture forged in the fires of the South Bronx by disenfranchised Black and Latino youths who were tired of losing and mad as hell. Mics lit and passed like torches to hordes of the unfortunate. No support and no idea what their importance is. No future, but about to change the course of it. On course to force a culture to respect the new source of it. On corners where the poison passed, the poor and homeless foraging. Near the quarries where gangsters pour forwards and tortured corpses in corridors adorned with the portraits of boys before them who died by the sword but found 40s and good lords pouring them. In the shadow of corporate fortresses and courts deporting foreigners down the street from colleges they couldn't afford to take courses in. The place you sport a dorsal fin or else you're made of porcelain. Kill or be killed, so of course there's no remorse in them. Boarded up stores, a metaphor for scores of closed doors in them. Rent was short because Shorty's lawyer filed child support orders in them. First, the war on poverty, then drugs. Now the war in them, fiending for marble floors and spots to park imported Porsches in. Sick of the pen, they decide. They ain't got another tour in them. And no more mourners or coroners keeping coffins warm for them. Sick of being quiet, being poor, they want more. And then, that's where it all began. Word is born, it's on. Hip-hop is born to them. Yeah. Make some noise, TEDx. Come on. That's what I'm talking about. All right. All right, that's enough. I got a timer here. All right. Conceived by New York City's Black and Latino youths, and raised in parks, clubs, and community centers, on buses, trains, and street corners. Hip-hop has grown up. It's 40 years old now. It's in the news, it's in the movies, it's in the marketplace, and yes, it's even in the academy. It is worldwide and rightly regarded by some as a potent social movement with the capacity to affect lasting political change, including the election of the United States' first black president. Hip-hop has done some real good, but it can do better. It can do more. As diffuse as the hip-hop movement is, it's possible to sketch out a shared identity that unites its members. In addition to their love for hip-hop's art forms, hip-hop's ranks share four core values that have remained a part of hip-hop from the very beginning. The first value is a commitment to challenging authority and speaking truth to power. A case in point is one of rap's first mainstream songs, entitled, appropriately enough, New York, New York, which begins, castles in the sky, 1 mile high, built to shelter the rich and greedy, rows of eyes disguised as windows, looking down on the poor and the needy. Miles of people marching up the avenue, doing what they gotta do just to get by. I'm living in the land of plenty and many, but I'm damn sure poor, and I don't know why. These are some amazingly insightful lyrics. But regardless of the content of rappers' rhymes, the fact that a disproportionate number of white people are actually listening to what a disproportionate number of Black and Latino youths are saying is itself a challenge to the status quo. A second value is a commitment to innovation and overcoming adversity. Graffiti artists didn't have expensive paints and canvases. They had aerosol cans and train cars. Breakdancers didn't have fancy shoes and a stage on Broadway. They had a pair of Adidas sneakers and a piece of cardboard in Queens. When DJs performed in the park, they didn't bring generators. They plugged their turntables and speakers into city lampposts. And rappers didn't have bands. They had the DJ, who borrowed or sampled funk, disco, R&B music, and used it to create new sounds. Something from nothing. A third value is a commitment to collaboration, blurring boundaries and balancing contradictions. All of hip-hop's art forms focus on bringing people together, to dance, to listen, to participate, and all derive from a diverse set of cultural traditions that trace their roots back to Africa. Contradictions are embraced, and differences don't matter. We don't care if you're 8 or 10, or if you're a senior citizen, Rap the Furious 5 in 1984. One of rap's first mainstream albums, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five's Greatest Messages, had a side A, which was literally a party, and side B, which was all about poverty. Rap could be serious, but it also knew how to have a good time. DJs like Kool Herc and Africa Bambaataa merged different genres of music. Breakdancers merged dancing and fighting, with crews of breakers squaring off against other crews in elaborate dance battles, all the while balancing on their hands, their arms, and even their heads. And graffiti artists merged public and private, decay and renewal, by turning crumbling, privately owned city walls into public works of art. Balance. A fourth value is nothing short of the desire to make a difference in the world. There's a saying in hip-hop, popularized by one of my heroes, the rapper Rakim, and it says, "Move the crowd." It has two meanings. Figuratively, it means that hip-hop should appeal to the emotions and inspire. Literally, it means that hip-hop should affect change. It should leave people different than they were before. If a song, a dance, a picture doesn't move people to action, then it ain't hip-hop. One of hip-hop's pioneers, DJ Africa Bambaataa, was a gang leader turned community organizer. Through parties featuring competitive dancing and rapping, Bambaataa literally moved young people away from gang violence and toward, in his words, peace, love, unity, and having fun. Now that's what I call moving the crowd. These shared values make hip-hop the perfect catalyst for answering Dr. King's call, the blueprint for making altruism unduly frequent, even excessive. Altruism is all about benefiting others, and hip-hop's commitment to speaking truth to power identifies who those others are. It's the powerless, the voiceless. Hip-hop's commitment to making a difference in the world suggests that concern isn't enough. Something's got to be done for these people. And hip-hop's commitments to innovation and collaboration suggest forms that altruism should take. Take risks for others. Blur boundaries for others. Create connections for others. Who knows? Another 40 years from now, maybe one of life's most persistent and urgent questions will be, what would hip-hop do? But until then, hip-hop can do more. Here are 4 ways that you can help. 1, abolish the death penalty in your state. The most selfish thing we can do is to take the life of another. Right now, 32 states have that power. Hip-hop should care. Sometimes those we execute are innocent people. Many times those we execute are people of color. Most of the time those we execute are poor people. And every time, those we execute are people. For all these reasons, the death penalty is in rapid decline. Over the past 7 years, 6 states have abolished the death penalty, and more are lining up. Governors in some states are refusing to execute people. The death penalty is over if we want it. Let's get mad as hell, speak truth to power, and shut it down. 2, support LGBT equality. Under federal law, it is legal to fire a person because they are gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender. In most states, you can't marry someone of the same sex. This is inequality, and hip-hop knows all about inequality. Hip-hop should care. Now, for some in the hip-hop movement, this could be difficult. About 20 years ago, I interviewed a Cape Verdean American man for a paper I was writing on race and ethnicity. And I asked him a terribly broad question. What is it like to be black in America? And I'll never forget his answer. He said, "Kevin, you'll never know what it's like to be black in America." And I never felt so small. But he understood. He said, "Kevin, you'll never know what it's like to be black in America, but don't ever stop asking." And I haven't. So today I work with people with physical, and mental disabilities. Here I come. People who aren't white, who aren't male, who aren't straight, who aren't upper middle class, who aren't citizens, whose anatomical sex doesn't match their gender identity. And I've learned something. I've learned that their lives are a lot harder than mine. And I don't think that's a coincidence. Dare to listen to those who are different than you. Take that risk. 3, to my next generation, hip-hop heads, K through 12, teens, 20s, we pass the mic to you. I want you to find ways to blend your personal values and the professional lives you may lead so you can get paid to do something you care about. And if you can't get paid to do it, then get paid some other way and give back however you can. Volunteer, protest, organize, create. And no matter what you do, don't conform, don't cover. Be your authentic, radical selves and be better than us. And lastly, to my first generation hip-hop heads, cats in your late 30s, 40s, OGs in your 50s and 60s, you look good, baby. Yes, you do. Thank you for moving the crowd. You did it. You changed the world. But your job isn't done. I want you to find ways to use your power and your privilege to walk in the light of altruism. And I want you to teach the next generation to do the same. When they look to you for guidance, teach them to answer Dr. King's question, or at least, at the very least, to never stop asking it. The greatest messages ain't from on high. They always come from below. Not from castles in the sky, but from where the cabs don't go. From the graft-drenched gutters, where the only grass that grows is the dro that help brothers live fast and ride slow. Hip-hop is a status quo's whistleblower. Voice for the voiceless, the youth's loose cannon, game changer for children with no choices. Ambassador for the masses, seeking access to justice from those bastards who keep asking why they taxing just us. If all the big businesses would stop making privileged kids and start making differences, get rich and die giving it, we wouldn't need this hip-hop. We'd all be paid. Until then, we are hip-hop, and hip-hop saves when those who are not hurting become as indignant as those who are. When we fasten their pain like sandals and walk a mile in their scars. When we stop being quiet and start being fearless. In the name of the fathers and mothers, sons and daughters, holler if you hear this. Thanks.